the late 80s and early 90s, there was this movement to have Montego Bay be the second city, and that was done. But there was a time when almost half of the Jamaican population was living in Kingston and in its surrounding areas, because this was the technological and the manufacturing center, and this was the pulse of the country. So much so that even Bob Marley, you know, as he was out in the country in St. Anne's and learning his music and his trade, he knew that if he wanted to make it in music, he had to come to Kingston. So Kingston almost became the mecca for everybody who wanted to survive either in agriculture or in music or on certain cultural things, or to get you know, an education. So Kingston was the place where you would really see the myriad of the Jamaican experience. You know, you'd walk down the street and you'd see the Rasta man who is, you know, just walking and chanting and screaming. That's right, that's right. And screaming at the oppressive system. And at the same time, you know, you could see the great stores, the well-constructed homes, and Kingston, all its complexity, the ups and downs of a country that is growing and trying to find its place in the world. Again, it was the political seat of the country, the Parliament House and all the other government functionings, and many of the high schools. You know, there was a time when, you know, most of the Jamaican high schools were situated right there in Kingston. So growing up as a child, I think that's what I treasured the most, you know, walking from place to place or driving from place to place, and you know, especially going to the market, you know, the Kingston market, and seeing, that's right, mm-hmm. You know, just seeing the range of possibilities, the colors, the smells, the bells.
This is an outdoor market where
right.
people come from the country
and bring all their wares. And I mean, you know, it's just out of this world in terms of, you know, the bargaining and the bargaining and the trading and the, you know, it's just beautiful, just spectacular.
You had mentioned earlier about the Rastafarians sort of cursing the society. I mean, it's interesting to me, and a uniqueness of Jamaica. Jamaica is where the Rastafarian movement began. And these Rastafari distinguished themselves from the rest of the culture. They have, who are they? What do they believe, and where'd they come from? If you could tell us some of that.
Well, the Rastafarian movement, in many ways, owes its genesis, its birth, to the work of Marcus Garvey. I mean, if you can ever claim that any movement really has one starting point, you know, I don't believe that. I believe that, you know, life happens in its flow, and so although you could pinpoint to somewhat the beginning of a movement, on so many levels it was always there, you know, that's my view. And Marcus Garvey was a very outspoken Jamaican who began to challenge the status quo of what Jamaicans believed about themselves, about the world, and especially about God. At a time in the early 20th century, the beginning of the 1900s, you know, Marcus Garvey championed the movement to begin to say Africans for Africa, that the descendants of the African slaves did not need to imitate the experience of their colonizers, that didn't need to mime the experience of those who oppressed them, that they would be better served by going back to their African roots and finding in their African heritage all the things that they needed to make themselves a better people. So he began saying that, you know, Africa for the Africans, you know, rise up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. You know, he became the first liberating voice at that time when it was most needed. And so he began to say, you know, turn to Africa, look to Africa, to the crowning of the black king. That was one of his messages, you know, look to Africa. And sure enough, in 1934, you had the coronation of Haile Selassie as Emperor of Ethiopia. And he took the title King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Conquering Lion of the Tribe of Judah.
This is Haile Selassie.
Haile Selassie. And many people who were followers of Marcus Garvey at the time, and certainly very concerned about this Back to Africa movement, saw in the coronation of this man the fulfillment of the words that Marcus Garvey spoke when he left Jamaica in 1929, saying, "Look to Africa, to the crowning of the Black King." What many people don't know is that part of Haile Selassie's title was Ras Tafari, okay, you know, son of the Trinity or light of the Trinity. And what these people who wanted to follow this man, what they did was to take his name, put them together, and call themselves Rastafari, you know, Rastafarians. And basically what they did, they took on at a time what was shocking to most people, but was redemptive in so many ways, because they embraced what they thought, you know, yes, Jesus, God incarnate, was a black man. And in Africa and in this person of Haile Selassie, they saw the expression of the divine.
So to the Rastafarian, Haile Selassie is God.
Is God. And keep in mind, you know, I mean, you have different interpretations of the Rastafarian ideology. Some Rastas believe that he is God incarnate. Some Rastas believe that he is Jesus Christ reincarnated. And again, some believe that he is just the most exalted human being. But whatever it is, the ground rule was, here is a black man who is divine. And you can imagine what that meant for an oppressed people or people struggling with their identity, to hold out the hope that God was one of them, that God was made in their own image. And so in somewhat of a biblical movement, they banded together and came together